stand beside him and help him to move this city forward. We're looking for greatness, God, and it will take us to unify in every area of this city. And tonight, we thank you for the outcome. We thank you for the great godly ideas that have gone forth this night. And we give you the glory and the honor for the victory of this city. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Williams.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Warner. Councilman Bovier.
Here.
Councilman Goins.
Here.
Councilwoman Koss.
Here.
City Attorney Garganese. City Manager Takanich.
Here.
And Assistant City Manager Fuhr.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next item up is approval of our agenda and minutes.
Motions for
Oh, one second.
Changes,
We got
Mr.
some
Mayor.
changes.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Mr. Mayor, remove item 3 under 3.2, awards and presentations, with Deputy Mayor Warner not being in attendance this evening. Under item, the consent agenda, we're going to remove item number 2, and we're not going to remove, we're going to and add it to item number city business 7,
Eight.
or excuse me, 8.5. 8.5.
No, 4.
8.4, correction, yeah, 8.4. And then we will be moving item, or adding item 8.5, which is acceptance of the fire grant that the fire chief announced at the last meeting. It's to receive the revenue, in that we have received that grant. And this will, I'm trying to think,
Yeah, multi-year, we're going to item number 8.6.
yes.
7-2.
Would you?
What's that?
Make a
Seven, wait. Okay, yes,
Yeah,
we are, it's not, we're tabling, but we're removing, and we'll bring it back at either the next meeting or the meeting right after. Council business item number 2, the resolution providing for the waiver of building permit fees related to solar voltaic installation. We got a revised, some additional information that we want to look at incorporating into the resolution.
Thank you, sir.
I make a motion that we accept the agenda, this evening's agenda with the amendments.
Second?
We got a motion by Councilman Bovier, a second by Councilwoman Koss. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to our minutes from our regular meeting of March the 13th, 2019. What is the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
We got a motion by Councilman Bovier,
Second.
second from Councilman Goin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to our award presentation.
Yeah.
We have our Cocoa High School chorus, and I tell you, I'm so grateful for Councilwoman Koss because she's really been heading this up, and from a council standpoint. So
Well,
I'm gonna let her go ahead and
thank you for
do her
that.
thing.
This is fun stuff, and the logo is behind me along with the GoFundMe site as well. I am so proud to introduce the Cocoa Tigers Chorus. They are the only Florida high school to be invited to perform in Carnegie Hall next fall for the 9/11 commemoration.
Sometimes I just don't know which way to turn. Ooh, I heard of a city called heaven. I'm trying to make heaven my home. Sometimes I'm tossed and I'm driven, Lord. Sometimes I just don't know which way to turn. Of a city called heaven, trying to make heaven my
I'd like to introduce, of course, Dr. Misty Martinez is the chorus conductor. And behind every great chorus, behind every great conductor, is a great principal, Principal Wilson. I just want to make an announcement. Dr. Anastasia Hawkins-Smith, who is the CEO of the historic Cocoa Village Playhouse and a Cocoa Tiger alumni herself, she wasn't able to be with us tonight because she's opening a show at the Playhouse this evening. But she asked me to make this announcement. The historic Cocoa Village Playhouse is working jointly with Cocoa High School to have a concert featuring the Cocoa High School Chorus. The purpose is not only to feature this very talented group of young people, but to also raise funds in order for them to travel to Carnegie Hall in October to perform. The date hasn't been set yet, but we are anticipating the end of August or the beginning of September, and we will have information to you after May 26th. So we encourage everyone to move forward in supporting the students to have this opportunity, because, you know, it takes a village to get our kids to Carnegie Hall. I don't know if are we going to try for a photo or not? I think
Yeah, we can.
we're a very big group.
Yeah, try to squeeze in there.
I don't know if we can even get a photo.
They're taller than me.
What do you think?
Spread out. They can
If we maybe stand
far
up
away.
there, or? Okay.
have to get way from
I gotta stand on my toes.
I don't know. This might be a little bit much to ask. Nope, you're fine, I got it. 3, 2, and 1. Think again.
Can we have Mr. Wilson in this picture as well?
Got a little run in.
There you go. All right, there he is. 2 and 1. The GoFundMe site is right above me. If you have an interest, and I hope you will join us at the concert in August or September at the historic Cocoa Village Theater.
There you go.
All right. That was absolutely incredible. We're going to move on to our delegations. Our first speaker card we have up is Ms. Connie Harvey and Pam Shea. They're going to do it together. And get you all the ladies to state your name and addresses and
Good afternoon, good evening. I'm Pam Shea, Tales of the Barkery, 308 Bavard Avenue, here in Cocoa. And I'm Connie Harvey, 29 Riverside Drive, here in Cocoa.
Move the mic in front of you.
So this evening, we're here to invite the City of Cocoa and everyone to attend our Giving Tuesday. If you're not familiar with Giving Tuesday, we started that about 4 months or so ago in the Village Merchants Association here for Cocoa Village. And so the first Tuesday of each month, the Food and Beverage Organization, which is part of the Historic Cocoa Village Association, has been pairing up amongst ourselves and then sponsoring a charitable organization. And then it's a ticketed event. So this time, we have decided to pair up with Ryan's. So the first Tuesday of the month will be with Ryan's, okay? It's a ticketed event from 5 to 7, a selected menu, and our money this time is going to go to Community First, specifically for the Red Cross and their programs for the students in the swimming, okay? So, and Connie will talk to that. So I'm going to pass out flyers for all you guys to have, and ladies, to put in your offices and everywhere, and if you don't mind, while Connie talks quickly about what her program is and how excited we are to have that here, right here in Cocoa.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pam. We're thrilled that the American Red Cross Aquatic Centennial Campaign is the charity of choice for this month's Cocoa Collab and the Giving Tuesday. It's an opportunity to highlight the fact that drowning is a leading cause of death for kids in the state of Florida. And this is a chance for us to get in front of a broad audience and talk about the fact that drowning is a problem and the steps that they need to take in order to make certain that they stay safe in and around the water. So the cool thing is we are doing our Aquatic Centennial campaign here in Brevard County in partnership with Brevard County Parks and Recreation. And so the kids that go to the summer camps that are part of the Brevard County Parks and Recreation Department that are in our neighborhood strategy areas here in the city of Cocoa will be transported to the Jolie Smith Park Pool throughout the summer so that they can learn the life skill of swimming. And there is no doubt that swimming lessons save lives and that, you know, that it will literally save lives here. So we hope that you all will come out and join us. Participate in the National Water Safety Month activities that will be going on here in the city and International Water Safety Day. But we really are excited. Thank you to HCVA and the Cocoa Collab for making the Red Cross Aquatic Centennial Campaign the charity of choice. And we'll see you all on May 7th.
All right,
Thank you,
thank you,
ma'am.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Pam, money.
Do what?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else in the audience like a flyer? Thank you. We have-
Okay,
You can buy tickets on-
next up we have Ms. Melissa Martin. Hello.
Good evening, good evening.
Good evening.
Melissa Martin, Cocoa. So some of you might know I'm currently involved with a project. It's TBD how successful it will be, but it's called Civility Brevard. And what we're doing, and it's mostly being held on Facebook, we're trying to regrow our skills of civic and civil discourse, especially between folks who vehemently oppose each other, sometimes and oftentimes, unfortunately, on a personal level. So what we're trying to do is just bring back a few of the skills that we may have forgotten and reinstitute that as our normal again, what we expect of each other. And we had one event earlier this month, and it was a great success. We had folks hovering around open mics down in Melbourne, but everyone was very gracious in talking with each other and finding out where perspectives lie, whatever. So I'm going around to cities right now, and I'm hoping to offer some information. I don't necessarily believe in trickle-down economics, but I am a big believer in trickle-down leadership. Anyone who's been in the military can attest to the value of a commander. When they first take charge, they have a commander's intent or commander's statement to set the tone. And so what I'm hoping, since we have some stuff going on at the national level, state level, even county level, of some of our vitriol spilling out into the official meetings, which we all know is not really appropriate, I'm hoping to let it begin here in Cocoa. So I brought this proposal for Cocoa's commitment to civility, and you can call it recommitment if you wish. I know everybody already knows what's going on, but I think it's important to make a statement in the public, for the public view and for public discussion, that this is what we believe, this is what we will adhere to from now on, and these are our standards, and we hope you'll follow us. So I'm going to just hand this over, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, next up we have Linda Dolphin.
Hi, I am Linda Amanda Dolphin, and I live at 2100 North Indian River Drive, but I'm going to read a letter that's been written by Todd Riggs of 16, I better put my glasses on, 1629 North Indian River Drive. This was addressed to John TeCannon and a couple of councilmen back in February, and I just wanted to get it on the record. So Todd is saying, I am writing this with two hats on, excuse me, but primarily as a concerned resident of Cocoa. Last week, I learned of 35,000 plus cost savings for the city. I want to make sure you are aware and that you and your utilities and public works departments have the opportunity to follow up. In my role as a consultant, I've recently been working with the Midas Companies, a leading full-service provider of water and sewer rehabilitation services based in the Metro DC area with a division in Palm Beach, Florida. As it turns out, Midas is in discussions excuse me, with Corolla Engineers in Orlando to rehab 1,800 manholes in Cocoa, approximately $700,000 of work. Relying on an engineering firm to serve as a go-between to manage this type of work can lead to excess and avoidable costs in a couple of ways. They may spec suboptimal materials because they don't actually do the work and therefore don't have hands-on experience with the materials. This is a potential savings of 5%. Selecting the right materials for their job on a $700,000 job is a $35,000 savings. On top of that, Cocoa will pay Corolla's engineering bill. I don't know if that's hourly or lump sum. Either way, it is unlikely to be a small number. So that's $35,000 avoidable costs plus whatever Corolla is charging Cocoa just on the scope of this work. So what I am suggesting is I would like to put you and the right people on the city staff in contact with Kevin Jennings, the general manager of Midas Southeast, so he can help Cocoa determine the most cost-effective path forward on all of our water utility needs. And he looks forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Can I be in the record? That letter?
Yeah.
It is?
It is.
I'll get a copy. If you can give me that, I was going to email you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, next up we have Sam Claiborne, Cocoa Youth Athletics. Athletics, I'm sorry.
I want to. Hello, my name is Samuel Claiborne.
Thank you, ma'am.
Again, I want to thank you all for your kind donations to athletic corporations, Cocoa Youth Athletic Corporations. There's some issues we have at the park. First, I want to go with, tell you a story. My name is Samuel Claiborne, which I've already stated. I'm born and raised in Cocoa, Florida. I grew up in PDM projects and Pineda projects. I played at Cocoa Youth football field. And the relationships, you know, my mom had 6 kids, single parent home. The relationship I had with my coaches who helped me pay for me to play is what made me eligible for that. And through that, I became a productive citizen. Right now, the issues that we have at the field with the league is advancedly coming close to the season to start. We took the right steps and went through the right levels of authority to, hey, this is the issues, this is what we are. We already showed them what needs to be addressed, and right now we're 2 months, 3 months in, waiting on them to respond and get these issues fixed. We're coming to you and asking you if you could get in touch with those who needs to do the right thing so we can be ready for the season to start, because again, with the relationship that we have with the kids in our community can eventually lead to productive citizens and less misfortune going on in our community. Because of coaches that will take the time out to pay for kids, to go to their house and make sure they're all right, to go to their school and make sure their class and school grades are up to par. And this is what we're trying to bring back with Cocoa Youth Athletics, is that relationship between the community, the coaches, with public officials, with the police force and everything. Again, we're trying to just build relationships so we can have a good facility to where we can function as an organization that's serving the community, not just for ourselves, but the betterment of everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Who is that contact at Brevard County Parks and Recs? Is that
The contact has been Richard Tucci.
Tucci?
And I'm Alicia Phillips. I'm the secretary of Cocoa Youth Athletics. if you have lived in Brevard, I grew up in Brevard, raised here. Every other field that is within Brevard County has been upgraded, all except for Stradley. We are looking at decades-old material at Stradley, holes in the walls, floors about to fall through. We're doing the best we can as an organization to patch up what we can, but we really need for our city leaders, because talking to the county says it's the city, and then going back and forth, and we're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
But our kids deserve better.
Mr. Claiborne, and I'll tell you, I appreciate all that you do. I appreciate all that your coaches and your staff do. I've been out there. I've actually come out there and talked to some of the parents out there and some of the coaches, and I've sat in my vehicle and watched some of your practices out there. And those are some of the inequities that I talk about that we see in our community, not just with our schools and roads and sidewalks, but also in our athletic facilities, our parks. So we know about it, and we will be talking to the powers that be and addressing some of those issues. We've been having some discussion with reference to our parks already, but this is not going on deaf ears. We're trying to right some wrongs that's been done over a number of years. So thank you. And I don't know if anybody else wants to say anything else.
No, you good. I just, I know Matt been having a lot of conversation with the county about all of our parks within the city. So maybe we could set up something like really soon to have a meeting with them and us at Stradley Park. So we actually can see it and see something tangible, but sometimes, they're calling, I know they are probably a lot. And a lot of times they push the buck on the city a lot, pretty much all the time, so.
Yeah, and when Cocoa Youth Athletics Corporation submitted their application to the city, I did go out there and have a look at the facilities, because it has been, 4 or 5 years since they've been used, and notice the same conditions present. Some of the private property surrounding the area, I believe, is in the county jurisdiction, so code enforcement from the city, while we can pass the information on to them, we can't direct action on those private properties, but the press box, I'm surprised anyone went up those stairs, to be quite honest. And the field conditions, I don't know when the last time was they were even watered. So, yeah, there were some fairly minor things that I think they could correct, at least for the time being. But we are working with them on the overall maintenance agreement, but this can be addressed a little bit more immediately as far as the specific request that you have. So we work with them.
Yeah. And we do know, I think they're still sharing the field with the rugby folks, right?
No, rugby has moved out.
They have moved out? Okay,
Yeah, they're gone
great.
now.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. That's how we find out things. It's folks like you coming up and making us aware of some things that are happening, other than us coming in here talking about it, because sometimes people take it as though we're just complaining, and they don't see anyone behind the issues that we're bringing forward. So it's nice to see people come in and actually talk about some of the issues, and we actually hear them bring it to the council instead of us bringing it to the council. With that being said, we got next Miss Jennifer Kinney.
Hi, Jennifer Kenny, 1917 Quail Ridge Court, apartment 1901 in Cocoa, Florida, 32926. I'd like to thank Mayor Williams, the city council members, staff, and fellow Cocoa citizens for allowing me a few minutes of your time to share my experience from last week and an opinion that I have about city council meetings. So I spent all of last week in Tallahassee with fellow union members from throughout our fair state participating with Florida AFL-CIO Working Families Lobby Corps. And while my interest primarily lies here at home with Cocoa politics and policies rather than state and/or national politics, I find it necessary to trek to Tallahassee at least annually to meet with the folks who are getting paid to represent us. I am pleased to report that our newly elected State Representative Ciros is sponsoring House Bill 2163 to provide appropriations to Cocoa High School for their upcoming new construction program. I'm also pleased to tell you that our State Senator Wright is in full support in the State Senate. And it was my pleasure to meet with both our representative and senator, and I truly hope that Mayor Williams will invite them to visit with us after the session for a full Tallahassee report. So I am confident that both our state legislators understand that we are all in this together, that we must find common ground to work together, and that we all care deeply about Brevard County and our cities, otherwise none of us would be doing what we are doing. So a few things to consider. Unlike our nonpartisan city council, there are two main political parties elected to our state legislature. Like our city council, each legislator is elected by a majority of his or her constituents to perform their job in a professional manner and to observe the will of the people. Whether or not a voter voted for an elected official does not excuse that elected officer from serving their constituents to the best of their ability. And at this time, I must tell you all that about the decorum that was exuded by all members of both parties in our Florida legislature, not only during their respective House and Senate sessions, but also in committee meetings. Debate, questions and answers were called on by the chair or the speaker. Members politely referenced items, asked questions and/or answered items as they were addressed. They shared opinions and reasons for their opinions. By this process of good manners and appropriate behavior, onlooking members of the public were able to follow along. Also noteworthy is that the state elected officials never took an accusatory note with their fellow lawmakers. Personal matters were not addressed on the State House or Senate floors. No one raised their voice. Everyone remained calm and discussed business and voted. And so, to repeat myself, decorum prevailed, and I was delighted. I truly hope that our Cocoa City Council can take a lesson from the 160 persons who occupy our state legislature and not from the D.C. crowd. Thank you, and I look forward to a pleasant meeting this evening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, that's, if there's no more cards. Okay, and we're going to move on to our consent agenda. What is the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve the amendment.
We got a motion from Councilman Bover. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
We got a second from Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? It passes unanimously. We're going to move on to our public hearing. And it's passed on the first reading ordinance number 04-2019, a zoning text amendment to allow indoor shooting range. I'll let the city attorney, you need to read that in, or?
I do, Mayor. Ordinance number 04-2019, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cocoa, Brevard County, Florida, amending Appendix A, Article 11, Section 19 of the zoning ordinance of the City of Cocoa to allow indoor shooting ranges as a permitted use subject to certain conditions, including ancillary retail sales and restaurant, providing for the repeal of prior and consistent ordinances and resolutions, incorporation into the code severability, and an effective date. And as you noted, Mayor, this is first reading of this ordinance. It's also a public hearing item.
Yes, sir.
And
Ms. Seelig,
you're right.
you're on stage.
It's on my screen. There we go. Okay. Right, so this amendment was precipitated by a project that was proposed as an indoor shooting range, not yet titled, that would include a retail store component as well as a restaurant. Business model is similar to another operation down in Melbourne and one in Volusia County. At the present time, we have no provision in our code for indoor shooting ranges as a use. So what we're proposing is in the M2 district to incorporate text under the permitted uses 12D, and we would add number 5, indoor shooting ranges with ancillary retail sales and restaurants subject to requirements of subsection A12D2 of the section to be permitted with the following conditions. A, that all firing takes place within a completely enclosed building, and B, that a site plan application for the development of the range should be included and a plan by the Florida registered engineer demonstrating the building is both soundproof and appropriately designed for the use. So that's the text we're proposing. As you know, for any text amendment, we look at the need and justification for the change and the consistency with the comprehensive plan. Currently, outdoor firearm testing facilities are permitted as a special exception in both M1 and M2 districts if they are ancillary to a permitted firearm manufacturing use. The staff report for that ordinance recommended the use as a special exception to ensure that such facilities wouldn't be located within close proximity of a residential area. Primary concern being, obviously, the protection of the surrounding community and the environment. Florida statutes cover shooting ranges. Their state regulates this to encourage safe handling and operation of firearms, and mandates appropriate training for safe use and firing for anyone licensed to carry concealed firearms and anyone licensed to hunt in the state. The legislature's also preempted the field of regulation of firearms and ammunition use at sport shooting and training ranges, and in addition, environmental effects of the projectiles. However, the zoning ordinance regarding siting of such ranges continues to be permitted. We've incorporated in your staff report an article from OSHA on lead hazards. There have also been two other areas, the Code, Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, and Title 40 Code of Federal Regulations that regulate this as well. EPA and the National Park Service have provided brochures on best management practices for ranges. In consistency with a comprehensive plan, we have goals 1.1 and 1.2 relating to the location of businesses and the use. We have policy 1.1.2.10, where industrial zoning districts shall be regarded as appropriate locations for businesses that might have adverse secondary effects on residential areas, religious establishments, schools, parks, or daycare centers located in the city. And goal 1.3, providing creation of a wide range of profitable business opportunities and jobs in the city. The Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval of the text amendment at their meeting on April 9th of 2019, and our recommendation is a pass on first reading of ordinance, I believe it's 04, 2019, a zoning text amendment to allow indoor shooting ranges as a permitted use subject to certain conditions, including ancillary retail sales and restaurant in the M2 zoning district.
Thank you, ma'am. And I'd like to say that if you weren't in attendance of our Planning and Zoning Board meeting, every question you can imagine, and I applaud that board because they're absolutely awesome. Every question you can imagine, they asked that question of the developer. And it was, I was just impressed with them. I mean, I've always been impressed with those guys, but I applaud them. And that being said, you guys can either comment now or open it to the public.
Yeah, I'd just like to, well, because this includes a restaurant where they serve beer and wine.
Correct?
Are there other places that do that as well?
There are. There is a place in Melbourne called Frog Bones. Same basic model of a indoor shooting range with retail sales, and then also a restaurant that serves, they have a full bar. Our code is, going to be limited to beer and wine, but that's our present text. But they do, and then also in Volusia County, there's a place, Top Shot, that has same basic, model.
And they have no incidents?
Not that I've been able to ascertain, no.
And from my understanding, there's a lot of checks and balances there, a lot of security stuff in place because of the insurance.
Correct.
And
most, yeah.
So, but I don't know if is he here or? If he can come up and we can get him to just say a few words and.
Who?
Yes, sir. If you can come up and just say a few words, just.
Okay. You can grab the mic.
Because I'm sure some folks are curious about this whole project when you're talking about, the restaurant, but maybe some drinks and then shooting but I heard the presentation, so if you could.
Okay, my name's Bob Scales, 111 Cleveland Avenue, Cocoa Beach, Florida. That's a great question in regard to a concern when someone's going to have a beer and shoot. The difference with the entertainment complexes, if you will, in the modern ranges, is that the staff is equipped to look for that. And there's some protections in play. If someone goes to the restaurant and has an alcoholic drink, they get a UV stamp, waterproof UV stamp on their hand, and then everyone's hand is scanned prior to going into the range. Secondary to that, and since the P&Z meeting, we've actually introduced another technology whereby everybody that goes to have a drink has their license scanned, and that information reports over to the range as well. So there's two tiers, physical checks and balances, if you will. But secondary to that, the staff is trained to not only look for any type of impairment, certainly alcohol impairment, and which is probably 3 or 4 steps above what an indoor range that didn't have any of those protections in place. Because hypothetically, someone could sit in the parking lot, drink a 12-pack of beer, and walk in, and it's not going to be expected. In this case, it's something that everyone is focused on, and part of the enjoyment is to go and enjoy shooting and then have a hamburger and a beer and go home.
Thank you, sir. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead
Glad to hear that.
I'm going to go ahead and close it to the council at this time and open to the public for any public comments. So closing it to the council and open to the public for public comments. Yes, sir. If I can have you fill out a card before you leave, we should appreciate it. Yeah.
I'm Michael Harner from Cocoa. I just have a comment on the wording that soundproof is not enforceable. I think you ought to change it to a given dB at a certain distance from the building.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mine ended up next to my house, that's why I'm interested.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that was one of the questions that was brought up there, and I don't know if you want to address that about the sound. And it's going to industrial area.
That's an excellent question, and certainly a concern everyone has. I have a little deck, but I'll spare everyone the deck and just describe it. Of the similar types of ranges, and there's really 3 indoor ranges within a 50-mile radius. One thing that's very interesting to note, 2 of them are adjacent to residential areas. One is adjacent to an apartment complex. So sound control is very important. This particular building will be completely concrete, including the roof, and there's sound attenuation on the inside as well. So, arguably, and if you go to some of the new facilities, as you walk by them, you literally do not hear anything. So sound is very important. It's important to us, and we understand and appreciate that, and that's a consideration and a design element of the facility.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comments, or? If not, we're going to close it to the public at this time and reopen it to the council. Any comments from the council? Motion. We got a motion from Councilman Bovair.
Second.
Second from Councilman Goins. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. We're going to move on to, got item number 2, is a postponed consideration of a large-scale site plan for Dr. Jolie Smith Community Center. Ma'am, could you just kind of explain a little bit, because there was a question, I know we talked about it, but you and I, but.
Staff was planning on bringing this before the Planning and Zoning Board and then also council, so it was advertised. And so there was some discussion as far as stormwater and also parking. So we've since worked that all out, and it will be on the May 1st? May 1st? May 1st. May 1st P&Z, and then the May 22nd council meeting.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Can I get a motion to postpone this until? We get a motion from Councilman Bovair.
Second.
Second one from Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. We're moving on to council business. Let's approve resolution providing for a temporary waiver for building permit fees related to a building structural damage caused by the hailstorm that occurred on March the 27th. That was an item that Councilman Bovair brought up. So, and it's just basically just waiving the permit fees for anyone that can show that they had damage during the hailstorm.
I make a motion to approve.
We got a motion by
Second.
Councilman Bovair, second from Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. We're going to move on to city business. And next item up is approve resolution 2019-030, vacating a portion of the right-of-way of Riverside Drive. Ms. Seelig.
So St. Mark's Church is requesting a vacation of a portion of the right-of-way for Riverside Drive. It's in Appendix A, or Exhibit A, excuse me, in your agenda. The church presently owns the parcel of land abutting this section of the right-of-way, as well as the parcel on the north side of Church Street, where the church and the school buildings related to the church are located. This vacation is a roughly triangular portion of right-of-way. It was originally used for an extension of Riverside Drive that ran north from this intersection along the waterfront behind where we now have the Civic Center, and ultimately provided a connection to 520, where River Edge Boulevard crosses Harrison Street. As a result of the development of the park, the roadway connection no longer exists, and there's no anticipated need for the use of this portion of right-of-way as a roadway. So this is a piece of survey that shows you that portion of the road to be vacated. It butts up against the seawall. It's a little hard to read, but there on the east side of the project. The city will need to retain a utility easement over the right-of-way in order to maintain city water, sewer, and reuse facilities. And the recommendation is approval of the vacation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Councilwoman Koss.
Yeah, I just wanted to, now, this will still allow for public access in that whole corridor because people ride their bikes and they walk down Indian River Drive and around the park and...
Right, this is just it's really a grassy area. It isn't even paved. And here, let me back up the slide for you.
And how is it impacted by the storm, the last storm? It was not...
I don't know. I wasn't here with the city. I was
Matt told me that.
In that particular corner, there were, I believe, two or three vessels that did come ashore there. And you may remember there was pretty significant vegetation in that corner. When they did the removal, they did scale that back a little bit. But there was no visible damage to the seawall in that area, or I don't recall any significant flooding on that corner. There is a pretty significant stormwater pipe that runs underneath Church Street there, just to the north of it, but there were no failures or anything associated with that.
Okay. So there's still going to be public access and through that corridor, and I mean, I've seen the designs. I think, what they're planning to do there is attractive. It does block the public view. Somewhat.
Somewhat, yes, that's true, yeah.
What is the proposal there? Well, what is being proposed on that piece?
Sorry, yeah, I realized. The church is looking at building an open-air type of a chapel on that little piece there. It would have like arches and kind of like wrought iron gates instead of doors, so you would be able to see through the building, to the river, through gates, basically, at both ends. And then there'd be sort of window arches. That's the drawing we were given. It's a conceptual rendering. I don't know if that's their final design, but that's what we were, given to go by. So, yeah, you would see all the way through. It's a kind of the artist rendering was kind of a Spanish style, very much like the church is now, kind of a complementary design.
Okay. Motion to approve.
We got a motion from Councilman Goins. Second from Councilman Bover.
Move public comment.
What was that? Well, this is actually on the city business, so,
Can we?
yeah. I mean, if you'd like to come up and say something, the city attorney says okay, but if you can come on up, if you'd like to come up and make a comment. And if I can get you to fill out a card for me, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ed Green, 104 Riverside Drive in Cocoa. Question regarding the exhibit that was up there. Can we put that back up so I can ask my question?
while we're waiting for that, the question concerns the northernmost line on the area to be vacated, which is along Church Street. Currently, there is, right along that, that's labeled east 51 feet. Along there, there's currently a sidewalk, and my question is, does that sidewalk lie within or without the area to be vacated?
I have to look that up.
Well, why don't you have the church representative come up, because I think Mr. Honeycutt might have an answer for you.
Rodney Honeycutt, 3700 South Washington Avenue in Titusville. Yes, I was representing the church, and we were in charge of this, and the sidewalk is outside. It's on the north side of this area. It was not in front of the vacation.
So there'll be no effect to public access of the sidewalk with or without the vacation?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, a good indication, if you look at that exhibit, the seawall, and if you walk down there, you'll know that the sidewalk or the current pedestrian path, there's a grass separator between that path and the seawall. And as you can see, their line for vacation is consistent with the backside of that seawall. So
Gotcha.
There should be a small green barrier and then the existing sidewalk remaining.
Okay.
Do we have a,
You got a motion on the table.
we got a motion from Councilman Gordon, right? And a second from
second.
Bover.
Okay.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, approve resolution endorsing the East Coast Greenway route through Cocoa, Florida. 19-79, Mr. Public Works Director, Mr. Weagraff.
Yes, Mayor and Council, the Space Coast TPO is responsible for long-range planning of trails throughout the county. They have recently come up with a realignment of the East Coast Greenway Trail. The East Coast Greenway Trail actually is bigger than Cocoa. It's bigger than Brevard County. It's actually bigger than the state of Florida. It's part of the East Coast of United States Trail that they're trying to connect. And a piece of it comes through Cocoa, actually. And actually, the original reroute that they proposed was down US 1 and then crossing over 528 to A1A and down A1A. 528 will have a future recreational trail on it, so that would be part of the trail. Seeing a possible opportunity for the city, anyone that's driven on US 1 knows Titusville to Cocoa on US 1 is not the greatest path for a bicycle.
Yeah.
We looked at Grissom Road, and there's a lot more right-of-way, a little less congestion. So we actually proposed putting the proposed East Coast Greenway Trail on Grissom Road. Of course, then it would have to come down Industry underneath 528, and then down Clear Lake, across Michigan, and then back up US 1 along the existing bike paths to 528. Space Coast TPO looked at it, said that made sense, so now they have put that as the proposed route with the US 1 as the alternate route. What's advantageous is things on the trail qualify for a different level of funding. So we have actually submitted a proposed project for a trail on the north side of Michigan to link the future trail on Clear Lake Road that's being designed and the trail on 524 that's being designed. So we'll get a little corner of Cocoa on the trail map. And I think that's a big deal. 524, you get linked to, 528, A1A. It's a big deal. So
Oh, yeah.
they have requested the city approve the route, and that's what we're here tonight for your approval.
Okay. Yeah, this has been going on for a while. I remember back when I was on council before, we were discussing this when I was on the TPO when they were continuously going on with this. But Councilwoman
question.
Tosh.
Yeah, I was just going to, so are they state or federal funds? Are these grants that we can apply for?
These are grants, and I believe they're federal funds through the state. The original path was down US 1 and across NASA Causeway. They're replacing the NASA Causeway Bridge, and they did not put any trail capacity on it, so they rerouted the trail. Instead of coming across NASA Causeway and down Merritt Island, it now comes down the mainland and across 528. So,
Thank you, sir. What is the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve?
Got a motion from Councilwoman Koss.
Second.
Second one from Councilman Goins. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously.
thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. And the next one, request council's, item number 3 on the city business is request council's direction for the final design concept of the promenade and overlook project to replace the boardwalk and riverfront park destroyed during Hurricane Irma.
Yes, we have Tom Ville here with Infrastructure Solutions, and he will have a short presentation. Look at that. That's all. I'll turn it over to Tom for the final concept proposal for the waterfront promenade.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for having us back before the council. It's great to be able to present this. This waterfront promenade has come through an extensive process to get to this point. I think we have a final concept that has addressed all the questions and concerns and input we've gotten, and that's what we want to confirm tonight. So let me just run through just a little bit of the background of this. The idea of the promenade was developed during the Waterfront Master Plan update in 2018. The idea was to build something more durable than the previous wooden dock that was there, and also to improve the views over the water. There were a couple of key elements that were raised during that time. A desire to have a seating and a strolling area right along the water's edge where there would be good access for the water, and then overlooks that would allow you to get out over the water, but not quite as visually obstructive as the gazebos had been. So what you see there is actually a black and white rendering from the Waterfront Master Plan showing an overlook, some landscaped areas, and then these concrete areas that approach the waterfront. There they show some swings or other seating opportunities there. So then in November, a public meeting was held to review some concepts for the promenade and dig a little deeper into what direction the city wanted, gather input from the public. It was a very well-attended meeting. About 30 people were there, a lot of great conversation and a lot of input that you'll see carried over into this final concept. So some key design input from that section was that we had talked about one of the most important things in that meeting was to find out, what do you want that surface right along the water to be? Do you want it to be landscaped? Do you want it to be hardscaped? And if you want it to be landscaped, do you want it to be grass? Do you want it to be plantings? Coming out of that meeting, there was a desire to have a combination of both. Hardscape, that would give you flexibility to be able to use that for a lot of different functions, also to allow access right to the water's edge for people, but also landscaping to break it up. Views that were raised in that meeting was to break it up so it wouldn't look so industrial along that area. Once that input was taken, the other major focus was what was this railing or what would the edge at the water look like? And there was a lot of discussion about that, because if you had landscaping, pure landscaping, there can be a code case made that you don't need railing. It's not something we recommend when you have a facility like this park and a very difficult time for anybody to get out of the water if they got into the water. So we then looked at a lot of different railing types from different waterfront parks around the country and different areas. There was a strong preference shown to improve visibility. I think as you go down to the park now, you can see, just as it is now, the visibility is greatly enhanced, and wanting even more of that. We actually did some informal votes during that time, even if you remember, I know many of you were there. The preference out of that meeting was a railing that it was a stainless steel railing with stainless steel cabling, very low visible intrusion, I would say. Very strong, very good for weathering the elements there. We also had a suggestion made about providing an opportunity for signage for boats coming from the river, where they would see this wonderful park and want to know, what is that place? And so an opportunity to put signage there that would be a landmark for people from the river. And then, as I said, keeping a flexibility for a wide array of events. So the concepts we ended up with, you can see here, this is actually looking from the northeast at a portion of the walkway and the promenade and the overlooks. You can see the two overlooks, concrete overlooks out over the water in the same location, basically same size as the existing gazebos were. Behind that, on the land side of that, you see a low wall in this along the entire waterfront. That wall is necessary for us to fix the grade if we're going to have a promenade surface in order to meet ADA requirements for accessibility along the entire promenade. It also will provide visually from the park a very clean water's edge when you're looking out at the water. We've added in the middle a sign area. It is a concrete wall with the ability to put a sign on it and have that as a lighted sign. What you want on that sign, certainly you can determine, but it's an opportunity for people to see that. You'll see we broke up these areas with landscape areas. They are in curbed areas, so they're very easy and clean, easy to maintain. They also allow us to have a place where we can make any of the utilities a little more discreet. If we need to put electrical bollards or things like that, they're much easier, more discreetly hidden in a planter like that. So the other thing that we added, there was a suggestion made at one point about benches or seating in that area. So you'll see them in some of our examples, some of our renderings. You'll see some concrete benches without backs. And it was to give the flexibility that somebody could sit on those benches and be looking at the river. At the same time, if there are events in the park, they can turn around and be sitting on those benches looking at something in the park, too. So that was another suggestion that was incorporated. Okay, this is another example. This is looking over at the overlooks. I do want to point out in these renderings you're seeing tonight, they're a little higher resolution than the renderings we presented in your agenda packet. So you can see in the gray concrete at the overlook and in these concrete areas, there's a stamped herringbone pattern that's supposed to be in there to break up the texture of that. We were trying to present little lower resolution copies to keep the files smaller that went in your agenda packet, but that was lost. So you can see that. You can see the curbs around the landscape areas. You can see the railings depicted. During the public meeting, it was actually brought to our attention, there is a company right here in Cocoa that fabricates stainless steel railings, aluminum railings, and railings. Following that public meeting, I actually went and met with them. And they were a very helpful resource. They are a major manufacturer of railings. They were a helpful resource in developing this and developing the design as well. So this next picture is really from the opposite angle, gives you a better view of the top of the overlooks. The overlooks would be equipped with some bollard lighting. Probably not those bollards, something that would fit better in the decor, but bollard lighting on the outside to provide light lighting there. This is another view, just looking down, you can see these landscape areas. So as this concept is laid out right now, you have concrete areas that span about 50 to 70 feet, and you have landscape areas that span about 25 to 30 feet. Those could certainly be adjusted as you wish. The landscaping in here, this is not a final selection of landscape plant type. This is just representative. The thing I want you to focus on is we want low landscaping, obviously easy to maintain and all for staff, but low landscaping to improve that visibility. This is another section along, and this gives you a good idea of the visibility you would expect to see as you're walking down the promenade. This also shows some of those concrete benches on the side. And we just put them in, kind of alternate to the benches that are shown on the west side, the regular seating benches, so that nobody obstructs the other's view kind of as you walk along. And then lastly, I have two slides here on the sign concept. The sign concept does two things. We provide that riverfront sign. We have the opportunity for it to be lighted. The sign can be however you want it to be. We took the Cocoa text and fonts and just used those. It provides a good marker for everybody. It serves a second purpose in that there was some discussion when we were talking about the railings at that public meeting. And the one concern about the cable railing that was mentioned was around the fountain, and that area where you'd have kids running all around and all. So what that wall does is it replaces the railing in that section just opposite of the fountain as well. This is looking at it from the park side, so you have the opportunity again for a sign there. We also have the opportunity to put landscaping in there, which provides a little bit even greater buffer in and around that fountain area from the waterfront. But we left it without, we left it kind of open in there because one of the other issues brought up in the public meeting was that so many people use the park for photos. You know, anybody around here, their prom photos taken at the park, and looking for different spots to create photo opportunities, weddings and things that occur here. So this could be another one kind of centered in this area with the landscaping around it. So those were the concepts, and I know staff at this point is just seeking final direction to make sure that we've incorporated everything to date. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Councilwoman Kosh.
Yes, so the Cocoa Company, is this the only kind of fencing they fabricate, or do they do lots of different? Okay.
They fabricate any kind of DOT railings. They fabricate this type of stainless steel railings, all others. They did Winnie Palmer Hospital. They recently did New Smyrna Beach. So.
And the herringbone, is that permeable?
It is not shown as permeable. It is stamped concrete. That's a cost issue.
Okay, and so when we talk about the promenade, that includes the kind of, if we go back to the design, I don't know if you can go back. So the promenade that we're discussing is the brick that's here, the promenade that is brick colored, or is that actually brick? Is it actually permeable?
Well, the orange color that you see there is the existing paver.
Okay, and those are pavers, yeah?
Yes, those are pavers.
So this is,
This gets
next
added
to it
on
will
the
be
front.
just the
front piece.
herringbone.
It's a herringbone stamped in concrete. It's a cost, it was a cost consideration. We could do pavers in there. I wouldn't recommend permeable pavers. I love them. They're great in a lot of locations, but right behind the seawall, I would recommend against that, right in that location.
Okay, and how tall is the sign?
The sign is about 42 inches. That wall on the land side, on the sea side, it's about, I believe it's about 5.5 feet. You remember, I have to build that small wall behind the seawall to level the ground. So on the seaside, it's a little tall.
And so the stormwater, because I know we have some plans, or at least we're looking at some plans for stormwater retention to, protect the lagoon in this area. I guess we'll be talking about that next month, right?
Yes,
Ed?
Councilwoman Koss, we do have some conceptual ideas, which incidentally, Infrastructure Solutions looked at, of actually doing something in the river since there's very limited space to treat water. We have two large stormwater outfalls that come in, one on State Road 520 and one down at the south end of the project here. Both opportunities for additional stormwater treatment, but no property. So we're actually looking at doing something beyond this promenade and kind of extending something out. But we're looking at this real early stages. We're looking at the feasibility now. And yes, that is a possibility.
And so we've got the seawall, and we know, of course, they're vulnerable to storm surge and just breaking down. So I guess we're doing the living shoreline on the other part of Lee Winter. We've decided not to do anything in that regard in this part because it will conflict with other plans.
If we were to extend the treatment area out in the river, then, obviously we would look at the area between the new, it would probably be a walkway type concept, out a couple hundred feet in a semicircle, and something up against the bulkhead, that would kind of be the treatment area. And we may look at doing something on the outside of the actual bulkhead that's in the river.
And so we're really adding to the stormwater by having this impermeable surface that is going to drain everything from the building down to the river.
In the park kind of drains to the bowl, the bowl in front of the performance auditorium there.
Oh, okay.
So it all kind of drains to the middle. It's good for stormwater, not good for shows when it rains right before.
Okay.
But yes, this all, it does add a little impervious area, but it is treated in the park there.
So, of course, I was at those meetings, and, honestly, I don't like the fence. But, and we also, there were a number of us that really liked the idea of a knee wall, and similar to what they've done in other places like Sanford or Bradenton or Fort Pierce. In fact, I brought some pictures. I mean, I know this is, it's a rendition. It sure does look hot. I would like to hear what other people have to say, too. We've also received a letter.
Probably open up to the public. Because I got 5 emails.
And then the other thing is, we're forming a waterfront advisory committee. In fact, the CRA voted on that at the last meeting, right? When do we expect that to be in operation? Should this be something they look at?
I think this project was already underway, and I think everybody that because this is on a time frame as it relates to FEMA, recall, but this is a reimbursement, so we don't have enhancements the CRA can do, but restoring, and actually, Matt and, Ed and ISS, they've worked with FEMA to get them, to be honest, outside of their box, because otherwise they would be getting what was there. And it's tied to not just the FEMA, but also there's a fine construction grant. So any super material alterations could jeopardize. There was only 2, actually, us and was it North Miami Beach or Miami Beach that received those grants, and they didn't have any additional funds left. So, I don't know. I don't know if there's any other. I thought it was my understanding that coming out of that meeting, that the wire, one of those informal votes was that the promenade with the cabling was the majority, majority.
Well, the majority of the people that, I mean, that was
Well-
November, the holiday, I mean, it was, it's kind of a hard way to,
We discussed a lot of
Reach
different
consensus.
railings and options. We discussed
Yeah.
the knee wall, that was one of the things we presented. There was looking back on it, I remember the concern with the knee wall raised by some, there were two concerns. One was visibility, that you would now have something, roughly 36 inches high or so that would be blocking some people's views. The other thing was people using that and starting to access back and forth across to the river, or somebody sitting on it and falling off, a child or something like that. That was some of the discussion. There were a lot of different opinions in the room. Towards the end of the meeting, when we talked about this and we narrowed it down, and it got to the point of, it seemed like this railing was the preferred option. That's when I said, how many people would be in favor of using this railing? How many people wanted something else? And it was 15 people who voted in that meeting for this railing and 9 people who preferred something else. That's why we went forward with this railing. But there was a lot of discussion, and there is a lot of different ways to do it.
And I know I like the knee wall, but I started thinking and looking back at some of the events that we have down there. And I know there's a lot of kids and there's a lot of families down there, and I start wondering about some of the liabilities and stuff as far as, just having that there and not having that added protection. So,
With the previous boardwalk, I can tell you one of the things that we had to institute following an incident, and I think it was South Florida, is to put capacity limitations, because during like 4th of July and certain events, people will get close as possible to the water's edge, and there's just, I think that's one of the concerns when they get the fireworks going off and stuff. I mean, that's the main event that we have, where we see the park at maximum capacity, but there are also other events, non-city events, some of the concerts and stuff like that. So.
Well, I thought when we discussed this the other day, that the idea with this, I guess, what do you want to call that, a mini knee wall? I don't know, how tall is the cement that the fence is?
It actually varies depending on the grade.
And that's where the utilities are, right?
Utilities will be underneath it. Utilities are underneath the new pavement. There may be some utility access at that wall, access points for different things. With the landscape areas, I'm hoping to move all the access points into those landscape areas, just because they become a little more discreet and people don't tend to want to go fuss with them or use them. But that wall, to answer your question, I'm sorry, is it can vary, but expected to be about 8 to 10 inches
Okay.
along
And
that.
so what was described to me was that would give us the additional option of moving some of our festivals off the streets and into the park. I'm not sure I really like that idea, but it gave us that additional option.
We kept those concrete areas in that 50 to 70-foot area to just give flexibility if you were to set up things like that in the park, that you would have enough space to set up a couple booths or whatever it is that people do in those areas. I know you said it looked hot. If it's
There's
adding
no
more.
green, yeah. Well, it's back. Hopefully, the trees will,
Before enough that you could get an emergency vehicle in there, be it an ambulance going there, right?
Correct. And you would have the same access you have, the same access you have now from Harrison Street to go straight down.
Okay, I got a couple of cards here. Let me get these individuals up here. I got Mr. Troy Stefan. Let's hear from them real quick. And then after him, that would be former Councilman Alex Greenwood.
Try to get my card in last so I could hear other people. My name's Troy Stefan, 415 Illinois Avenue. I can just give you my perspective and what I think, and I have to agree with Lorraine and some other members on the board. Can you go back to that other slide? I know you said it looks hot out there. When I look at it, I just think it looks cold. You know,
Industrial.
I mean, the problem with the old dock system, and I brought it up because when I was going to do the hotel there across the street, you know, we looked at developing and stuff, and one thing that we like to keep is a feeling of connection to the waterfront. You know, the old dock system, you had the wood railing here, and I understand the liability ramifications, and I'll touch on that in a second, but it just feels, again, we're disconnected from the waterfront. Now, when you go to Miami, and I heard someone say about a knee wall, you have Fort Lauderdale, even Cannes, the largest film festival in the world,
Yeah.
in France, it's a knee wall.
Yeah.
And they don't have the issues, you know, that liability issues. Now, yes, I was thinking that when I was looking at the one slide with the railing going around the sitting areas, that's probably a good idea, because I was thinking of 4th of July and things of that nature. But you know, the 4th of July events, and we only have a couple of those a year, and for that particular event, we could put up the Mardi Gras railings. We have them, we put them up for that event, and then we don't lose the connection of that knee wall feeling. It's just it's a more welcoming feeling, and the sign, I think, is a great idea. Maybe we can capture some of the boating traffic from Miami and Fort Lauderdale and Sea Ray traffic. That's a great idea. But I would, you know, in moving forward, you know, the board, I would just say my 2 cents would be try to lean to something that gives connectivity and a feeling of oneness with the water, not you're isolated, and kind of that feeling right there with the railing just feels really cold and like almost even jail kind of feeling. It's just not a warm, and you can do the knee wall and have some nice landscaping in the middle, and that prevents people from, you know, sitting on it and stuff. But one good thing is, if you do decide to knee wall, I think that water depth is only like 2-3 feet right there by the seawall. So it's not like an issue where somebody does fall in, they can't stand right up, you know. So that's a saving grace if you look at, you know, looking at a seawall, knee wall situation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Greenwood.
There you go. Thank you. When I was at the meeting, there was a lot of people there. I don't remember hearing a majority that showed support for this looking as industrial as it is. Councilman Koss brought up some exacting points that was discussed. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought if, in fact, we have no choice but to have the railing, I thought we agreed to something softer like arched. Isn't that what we said? Okay. So it was not a majority for that fencing. That's number one. The other thing is the concrete pavers, I presume that's the ones in gray?
They're not pavers, they're just,
Concrete simulated pavers. Okay.
Existing pavers.
And then the ones in red are what's there existing?
Correct.
Okay, so that's not going to be altered, you're just going to add the decorative feature in the middle of the brick that's not there?
Correct.
Okay.
That's actually there, I'm sorry. In the
Oh,
paper,
so we're not altering that?
No, we're
Okay.
not altering that. We're
Be a
building
concrete ribbon.
eastward of that.
There's a concrete ribbon curb, then you're going to have the
Yeah,
textured pavement.
between the seawall and there where that grass strip is.
Okay. Again, I agree with what Troy had said, that there needs to be a connection with the water and the village combined and make it look more obviously a continuation of what's in the village. So you mentioned that the costs are less expensive for the simulated concrete bricking that we are seeing here, correct?
Correct.
All right. There was another suggestion instead of a completely concrete look, and this was really what was supported by the majority of the people that were there. A large individual paver look with grass in between as like a grouting, I guess, but you use a grass material. And I remember at the meeting then that the majority voted for that. Am I correct or not? I thought that that was another way of allowing it to be concrete and a place for people to walk on, but not look as industrial as that does by having the grass areas in between the paved large
We
stepping
talked about
stones.
that. We did talk about the grass-filled pavers.
Thank
We use them in a number of locations. That was not the majority vote because that doesn't meet ADA compliance.
Okay.
So you would be building a structure that they would not be able to
Okay,
access.
well,
That was the issue, but we did
I
discuss
can
that at
understand
length.
that now. ADA is very important, and I'm glad that you brought that up. Is the existing pavers that's not going to be altered, is that ADA approved?
Yes.
There's no issues with that at all?
I haven't gone through and checked the cross slope of all of it and all, but as far as the surface, it's a hard, durable surface. that would-
Okay, and that's the same for the concrete area that's simulated brick?
Yes.
That's ADA approved. Well, that is a prime example that solves the issues that we're going through
Mr.
with our crosswalks in the village.
Mr.
And I
Green.
really feel that that would be a very good idea of what to do and match what
Mr.
we're
Greenwood.
planning here. Yes.
Time is up, sir.
Oh, okay. So
Well, thank you, we
I
appreciate
think
it.
that was, yeah. I have a couple of things more, but that looks a lot better
Yeah.
than what we're planning in the crosswalks in the building.
Can-
Solves the ADA, solves all that.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Can I just throw up a couple photos? Because, I mean, one of the things I've been doing since that meeting is going to different cities in Florida to see what they're doing. Like Sanford, I just have a couple of quick slides that I put on there. Do I need to go click on it? Can I show it? It's just like 4 slides. I just want to
Yes, ma'am, but
give you an idea, just say.
okay.
I've been making day trips for the purpose of seeing what other people do, what some of the models are out there. And, okay.
Yeah. She's up in the slide.
And where would it be now? Presentation. Did somebody, okay. Here we go. They're not professional photographs, so. Okay, how do I get? There it is. Okay, so that's Sanford, that's the knee wall in Sanford, which is beautiful and really looks a lot like some of the facade that we already have going on in the village. And it's got a lot of green.
I don't like that, it's good.
That's also Sanford. These are pictures. And this is in Bradenton. What I loved about Bradenton was there was just, you're surrounded by green. You had some shade with the trees, with the porch swing. That's Bradenton as well. And they have a similar fencing to what you're suggesting. They also have some living shoreline that they're working on for their stormwater management. And this was New Smyrna. Now, that was, more similar to what we're looking at,
Yeah.
and that was it, but, yeah. So, I don't know how to go back there. How do I get out of this one? But, there.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I just did that. Just one more comment, please, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I mean, the reason I made those day trips is because everything I was seeing, I liked what we have better than what we were proposing. And I fully understand we want to take advantage of any available FEMA funds and make the best investments with those. I want it to be warm and inviting and, I'm just feeling,
Non-industrial.
I like this
Yeah.
one right there, Joe, on there now.
This is the broader view of the park.
Is there a way to make the railing,
curved.
Yeah, I mean, add some accents to it rather than try to soften it up. Because the one difference out of all those photos is there's not a riverfront park and a band shell where there's major community events held. That's the one difference out of all the locations. We're the only ones that have that
Yeah.
right now.
And I think that was, first, let me back up. We'll design what the city wants, and that's why we've gone through this process. We presented those, you remember, several of those similar Sanford photos were in our presentation. They were all the way back to the master.
They go back to the original guy, I mean, before we even had the waterfront master plan update, there was a desire, like, comments back in a way of getting rid of the old boardwalk system that was put in.
And so the railing can be changed, any of it, obviously. That's what you want to change at this point. But one of the things with the knee wall and this railing, there was a view shared too, that one of the preferences of the railing is the visibility of the park from the water. That was something, to be honest, that wasn't a big focus of mine, but came out in that public meeting. People were talking about being able to see into the park and being able to see what's there, and that you couldn't before. And when the wood docks got removed, people saw this incredible view of the park. And so that was, I think, one of the other goals here. Again, we want to design what the city wants.
Yeah.
We've gone through this process. I believe we've addressed the direction through those processes. I know not everybody's on board, but certainly if the city wants to go in a different direction at this, we want you to end up with a project that for the next 40 years you love, you know?
Is there any way that we could fast-track our waterfront advisory committee so that, you know, they could at least look at this? What is the timeline? What's our timeline?
That wasn't at the last meeting. I mean, I have to get with the city attorney, still getting caught up being out. And it's a CRA Waterfront Advisory Committee, and so for the enhancements projects, that's where they would come in, but this is kind of, again, this is a FEMA reimbursement project type that's been underway. It's
Our deadlines on this?
They do have a deadline that we have applied for an extension. It's already passed. I don't know how long that extension is for. The FIND grants do have an expiration, I believe. I don't believe it's in the next year, but it's certainly something that when this was presented to both FEMA as well as FIND for their hurricane recovery funds, that it was part of both the day slips and TDOC project. It's essentially to restore the entire waterfront that was existing previously. It's anticipated at the next regular city council meeting that the TDOC and day slip projects, they went out to bid, and they will be coming before you for bid selection. Those two projects were also presented to the public at the November meeting just to validate what was being signed. But like I had mentioned, those three projects were included and presented together to the fine board.
Yeah. I mean, those other projects, I don't think there was a lot of controversy around those. This is really the look of the park.
Well, I don't want to beat this up too much, and I know we're, I understand, and it was a great presentation. So basically, you're just trying to get some direction from us right now, right?
They're attempting to move to final design so we can place this project out to bid. So, yes, the alterations could still be made even in the construction process.
Okay.
I like this concept of this picture right here.
So we can approve this, and then the alterations can be made. We can't have it come back to where they're actually, as far as whether we want them.
No.
They would need that direction now to be able to incorporate
what those.
I would say this, if you came back and you said, we want to expand the landscape areas, or we want more landscape areas, if you want to go out there and walk it and say, see it on the ground, that's fine. If it's changing to something like a knee wall or so, then we would have to go back and
How long is that turnaround for you to redesign that?
I would, if it's to come back with like a knee wall for that length, it'd be a couple weeks to come back before you with that.
So we have, we just verified, we have less than a year for this project to be complete, March 2020. I mean, constructed.
Go ahead with it.
But we do want it done right in
Correct.
the way that everyone wants it to be, so.
And I just want to, it wasn't, while liability was a concern, because that was something, because there was a, and I forget, there's a reasonable standard, when you come to an environmental hazard, that within reason, it's not like the city's going to, obviously, we're just for safety, but when we sought to expand and change, and ask FEMA to do something different, was to be more resilient, so we weren't facing the issues that we faced last time, that, if we had another Irma and the wave action and then derelict vessels come crashing through, and to take out the whole dock system and take out the promenade, the gazebo, the day slips, T-dock. So that's why everything we've done is to be more resilient, to be more, to be more storm resilient, and then try to incorporate the design feature. So what can be done, I guess, Tom, in terms of the, well, but
Do you, I guess, are we just looking at what would this be like with a knee wall?
Yes, sir.
Is that really what it would be, or is it more than that? I guess, and I can tell you how quickly I can get back to you.
No, just a knee wall, from my understanding.
Well, the knee wall is the biggest thing, yeah.
Okay. I've done that. And we looked at that. There are other considerations we have to take into account for design.
Right.
I'm not going to show you something that we can't build and won't be right. So, but if it's just the knee wall, I will have something back to you within a 2 to 3 week period. Okay. I just have to look at getting a concept design for it and then getting these rendered, and also that you can see them. Now, one thing I need to bring up, just not to complicate this issue, but just to make sure you're clear now, on the T-dock and day slip, we have walkway that is immediately adjacent to the seawall along the access road to Lee Wenner Park, right? So going from this promenade out to Lee Wenner Park. That walkway has that railing next to it based on that meeting. Is that an issue? Because that's the way it was bid, actually. The contractors, and when you come to award it, in a couple weeks, that's what you would be awarding. So I just want to make sure there's no issue with that.
Well, I mean, I'd have much less issue with that.
Right.
It may not be my favorite, but I mean, I'm okay with that. This, from my perspective, is, this is a picture of Cocoa. It's the aesthetics of Cocoa as you're approaching it from the water or from the park, and it just, I would prefer not to have that kind of railing there.
Okay, I will design it with, I'll come back with a concept if that's the direction of the council. With a knee wall, I will keep the railing on the overlooks unless you want that changed as well. That. Okay. So if that's the direction of council, I can do that. And come
Oh, that's without the railing, right? That was.
on the overlooks, I think you.
No, the overlooks have to have the
the
railing.
Oh, yeah.
I understand
Okay,
that,
I got
yeah.
you. I got you, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Do we need to make a motion for this, or with this, or?
Provide direction, is there?
Yes, a motion would be nice so
Okay.
that infrastructure has
Replace the railing,
definite
to
instructions.
accept the design, replacing the railing with the knee wall, with an alternate concept that incorporates a knee wall.
Yes, sir. That's, can I get a motion from someone, or?
Yeah, so I'll make a motion that we look for an alternate design with the knee wall.
We got a motion from Councilwoman Koss.
Second.
Second from Councilman Goins. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great presentation, sir.
Tom, Mr. Mayor,
I do have a question regarding the timeline. You mentioned 2 to 3 weeks. This is an item that would be coming back before council to review. So we would be looking at the May 22nd city council meeting, of which items are submitted in advance of that. Is that something that you could meet?
How far in advance? Is it a week or 2 weeks?
It's almost full, no budgetary.
By the 10th, I believe, the May 10th.
I will try to meet the 10th, but I'll do my best to meet the 10th.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
If not, I'm sorry, but I would be happy to come here and provide a presentation with the renderings of that option as well.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move to item number 4, which is approved resolution amending the FY 2019 budget transfer funds for purchase order number 73716 and 73649 to Gargan East Waste and Via Agresta and Southman to cover estimate non-retainer costs for the remainder of FY 2019 through the use of general fund contingency administrative services.
Yeah, no, Mr. Mayor, primarily the reason behind this is we've had two, obviously, two incidents, if you will, 2 cases that have driven some litigation costs that are not covered by retainer. We have vigorously defended the unemployment filing, by former Officer Menendez, which was technically, which was appealed. Then we had Anthony's firm had to defend that, and we prevailed in the appeal. They also represented us during the arbitration. As you know, the item, he's arbitrating his termination.
Sir.
And so that was the one issue. Then there was the issue along Indian River Drive. In the area up there, there was basically a tiny home that was kind of like by a crane, like plopped down on a piece of land that resulted in litigation. So, and now this is kind of covering for what we potentially project in the future, but also recognizing those expenses that we typically receive as a result of, claims.
Yes, sir.
I can tell you that and Anthony knows this, we do monitor both the non-retainer and the retainer, and he works for you all, but I can tell you, on an hourly rate, you could get a really good deal for the retainer and the non-retainer.
Councilwoman Kosh.
Well, I'm cognizant of the time, so just really quick, wanted a better idea of what's covered in the retainer.
Okay.
And then the other thing is that, looking at the last couple of years, it's up 100%. So John just explained a couple of those, but I was wondering if there's any other trending. And then compared to other municipalities, because you represent several,
Okay.
Yeah.
The retainer it includes everything that's not excluded, which is the general litigation, and adversarial proceedings, bond and loan closings, and employment matters, and like code enforcement proceedings. Everything else is in retainer. In fact, sometimes as a courtesy, I put non-retainer items into the retainer as a courtesy to the city. So that's generally how it works. So we're a full service. We provide basically all of the legal services to the city except for pensions where the city has a pension lawyer, and then bond counsel required to do, bond deals. So in terms of trends, we can't really predict the non-retainer type items. It's basically on an as-needed basis, and we never know when we have employment grievance arbitrations and so forth. In addition to what John mentioned, we've also had to initiate 17 foreclosure actions on behalf of the city. In addition, we had to initiate civil forfeiture proceedings in several cases for the police department. Not included in these numbers are recoveries. I mean, this year alone, we've recovered approximately $85,000 in cash for the city, 2 vehicles, and 1 piece of real property. When you include the last 2 years with the foreclosures, we've recovered 10 pieces of real property for the city. So there's some recoveries that are not reflected. In terms of trends, I can't predict what happens in the non-retainer items because we never know, right, when we're going to get sued. I can tell you trend-wise on the retainer, within the last 3 years, our workload under the retainer has gone up 46.5%. And that's a flat fee retainer. And over the course, we get a nominal CPI adjustment, which doesn't even keep up with the costs associated with that we have to deal with. So trend-wise, we're seeing a substantial trend on retainer items that are reflective, I think, part because of the economy and land development actions and just helping out when we can, when the city has needs in various departments.
Yeah. So, last question, is what can we do to pay you less?
Well, you're doing a great job under the retainer. I can tell you that. Because our effective hourly rate under the retainer has gone down about 35% in 3 years.
Okay.
Thank you, Nancy. Could you turn your light off, please? Ma'am. What is the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
We got a motion from Councilwoman Cost, a second from Councilman Boisvert. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And we can move on to item number 5 under city business, which is a resolution amending the FY 2019 budget and council approval to authorize the city manager to accept and execute overdose prevention in the state opioids. Chief, you can go ahead and, or Deputy Fire Chief, sir, our chief.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. On March 13th, we brought to the City Council an application for a grant through the Florida Bureau of Emergency Medical Oversight for acquisition of EMS reporting hardware and software. In April of this year, we were actually sent a letter through the state of Florida that said because of such short turnaround, not many people applied for it, and we were actually awarded the grant in the amount of $36,650. So we're just requesting or asking for your approval to amend the budget and allow the city manager to accept that grant. It will pay for all the EMS hardware to bring us up to the current state standards in the state of Florida for EMS reporting to the state.
I was looking at the numbers, and I tell you, I was, for a city our size, I was like, wow. But I know that I've seen some of the numbers for some of the big cities, man, and they're up there. But
yes, sir.
I was really shocked at the numbers that we had here, and
yes, sir.
Wow, it's crazy. But anyway,
Motion to approve.
Second.
we got a motion from Councilman Boisvert, a second from Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Moving on to item number 6, which is a multi-year contract approval of new line stockpile agreement between the City of Cocoa and Aggressive Inc. Mr.
Yes, sir.
Walsh.
Thank you. Yeah, item number, number 6. Approve a new line stockpile agreement between the City of Cocoa and AgReserves Incorporated, doing business as Deseret Cattle and Citrus, and to authorize the city manager to execute the agreement. We have a previous agreement which expired a short while ago. It was a 3-year period. We never renewed it. We also took the opportunity to kind of update the agreement with the ranch. We have what are real essentially are lime residuals that are left over from the water process, where we're adding a lime and other chemicals, to clean the water essentially. That byproduct is favorable in agricultural operations. They're our neighbor. We've stockpiled in previous under a previous agreement. But basically, this agreement is a great relationship where we have a byproduct that if we didn't give it to them or have them use it, then we would be hauling it off and putting it in some landfill or some other way. So to be able to use it in agricultural operations gets a kind of symbiotic relationship going. They're going to use it and to a beneficial use of the land to change the pH and do other things that they do to grow crops. And we get rid of the byproduct very, very cheaply. So it's kind of a win-win for us. I'm here to answer any detailed questions you may have on the contract.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
What is the wishes of the council?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Or not so much a question, but we did discuss this at a very excellent presentation last night of the Utilities Advisory Board. And this is, it's called lime sludge, but this is from the water treatment process. So this is actually a mineral application. And I was quite satisfied with the explanations that we got last night in regard to applying this, because it is sensitive. This is going on, parts of it are going on our groundwater recharge area. So we want to always, of course, public health is paramount in our first consideration. So I would make a motion to approve.
Yes, ma'am. Also, just one thing to add, we had talked about, if anybody had really looked at it, the Environmental Protection Agency back in 2006 did a study, and their recommendation under that study for land application of lime sludge basically says that, to paraphrase, lime sludge from drinking water systems is not expected to create any significant threat to public health or environment. For this reason, no additional regulations or approval are needed.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I'll second Lorraine's motion.
Okay, we got a motion from Councilwoman Cost, a second from Councilman Boisvert. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we got an informational agenda, and that's just that, right? Okay, advisory boards and committee, we have one.
Rip Dahl, Chairman of the Board of Adjustments. We've had some recent people resign. One of them's going to be very missed is Councilman Goings. He was a big member of our club, you can call her, our board. We had one that has not reapplied for, his term was up actually at the end of the month, and he did not reapply. There's only 5 of us active. So if we miss 2, we don't have a quorum. So I was wondering, I've texted Councilman Goings if he knew anybody could help, and it'd be nice to have at least 1 or 2 alternates, because I got a feeling we're going to get real busy.
Okay.
And the second thing, being a Cocoa High graduate, Tiger Pride, that choir was amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Like I say,
Yeah.
go Tiger Pride.
Thank you, sir. Okay, city administration, Mr. Weegriff, sir.
No report, sir.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bo?
No report.
Chief?
No report, sir.
Chief?
I've said enough, no report, sir.
No report.
All right.
No report, sir.
No reports?
No report.
Mr. City Attorney?
Great that we did get a favorable ruling in the, I call it the tiny home case on Indian River Drive, so we'll be working with staff regarding the next steps related to that matter.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Assistant City Manager?
No report.
Thank you, sir. Mr. City Manager?
I want to thank everybody for your well wishes. Trying to get back into things. Fortunately, my lovely 3-year-old decided to bring home a virus as I was trying to get back into things. So just a couple things. just remind council, I emailed and provided a spreadsheet for your budget projects and priorities. If you could get those submitted. I've received one. I've spoken with another member. Also, Mr. Riggs is, Ms. Dolphin made some, I think, comments, and I do have, back in mid-March, I think I emailed him, and I with the legislative session and my health issue, I've got the stuff right here. I got to just review it, and I'll provide it to him. So, because the utilities director did provide it to me, it was actually sitting in my folder to be reviewed. And then last thing, just to let you know, I will not be, the Harvard Kennedy School Senior Executive Local Government Program. I was not one of two of the scholarship recipients. One was from Canada, and the other one's from Morgantown, West Virginia. So I appreciate your support in that, effort for that scholarship. And I don't think, and the other item I have is, I know it came up under council or under comment delegations. Ms. Martin brought up about COCO's commitment to civility. I did have an opportunity to know Mr. Mayor, not during the meeting. It was after the meeting. I was not watching it during. I was paying attention to the doctor. But after I did watch the meeting, and I did speak with had a conversation with the city attorney, and one of the things that came up, and it was actually adopted prior to even, it was up the same month I got here, but it was like before I got here, but there's actually an existing civility resolution that's in effect, and I think the city attorney can go over that because there is a section that essentially that it's still in effect, and it requires all current members of council to affix their signature to the resolution. And so, I mean, do you want to go over that, Anthony?
Can I say something real quick?
Provided a hard copy.
I want to say something real quick. I understand that we have this resolution, but there were some accusations that was made here and some statements that was made here in this council meeting, live on the air, that wasn't true. And you always asked to investigate that and bring it back, because I think the people need to know there was stuff thrown out there, and I think that the public needs to, I think that the residents need to know the truth. And it was a simple request, and I expect that of anyone. If anyone makes any statements up here reference to any other council member up here or whatever, then when you make those statements, and then the staff is requested to investigate those statements, then it need to be known. And I know for a fact that one of the items was checked out the next day. Names don't have to be thrown out here. We don't have to hear names. We just, everyone deserves to hear the truth.
Okay.
And we're trying to be transparent.
Okay, so, and that's part of the conversation I had with the city attorney. By charter, the powers conferred to me are to investigate employees that fall under my control. I cannot now, so I did in that particular instance, since there was an employee involved in an alleged, sunshine law violation. We received a statement, and he, in his statement, verified that there was never any meeting or conversations between Mr. Mayor, yourself, and/or Ms. Koss, other than a passing hello, goodbye. Outside of that, with regards to other matters, I have not, again, it's, I will, pursuant to my powers under the charters, I will, rely on my directors and the managers to ensure that the employees, because they have a responsibility, just like I do and you all do, to uphold the charter, and I'll make sure the employees uphold the charter with regard to direction or from somebody other than their director or the city manager's office.
Okay, because my concern was, I know that there was an issue with employees being given directions by myself. And I affirm that I've never, ever, and I'll state that again, I've never, ever called an employee and told them how to do his job. Whenever I have issues, I've always come into your office or assistant city manager's office with a list. And I'll tell you some of my concerns, whether they have to do with PD, code, or whatever. And I give you guys, I say, hey, these are my concerns. If I have pictures, I'll show you the pictures, and then I normally leave out there and leave it at that and hope that you all handle that. And that's the way it's always been. I was just very disappointed at what took place. I apologize for my actions because I could have handled it a lot differently because I knew what was happening. And it was just, I was a little irritated because there's been a lot of legal stuff going on. And I couldn't talk about it before because of a confidentiality deal. I hadn't signed the waiver, and I was advised by my attorney not to do that. But that's been done, and that's going to be made public because the results are back. And I am going to be turning that over to our city clerk so that can be public record so everyone can see and know the facts. And so I just wanted to make that clear. And but with that being said, sir, you can go ahead and finish.
So that therefore, following, because I did struggle, and then when I spoke with Anthony, I just can't, it's not my place to investigate you all. That would be where, under that Section 3 of the Charter, you all would have that power to do an investigation if you want to form your own committee of some sort like that. But I don't have that authority. But I spoke with an employee since it was a comment that an employee was there. And so I certainly wanted to, obviously, concern for the whole city, but also for the employees. And I'll take care of the employees on the other issues and working with the directors. And so we look forward to a continuous, productive relationship. And
thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Can I ask then, since the accusations were made against me and the statement exonerates me, does this become a part of the public record? Do I submit this as part of the public record?
It's a public
record.
It's a public record.
Yeah.
Okay,
And-
so it's already a part.
It's already part of the
Okay,
public record.
because
If
I've
you
never
wanna-
had anyone make criminal accusations against me.
If you want to submit it to the clerk as part of the record of this
Yeah.
meeting, you're more than free to do so.
Okay.
It is a public record.
Okay. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and do my reports now, since I've actually, no, you guys will get a chance. I've just gone to council meeting without giving a report. And I've had a, no, I'm just going to go ahead and do it right now. But I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight, and we've been very busy. We've been very busy trying to move the city forward. And I could tell you, I really do, and I appreciate Councilman Goins and Councilwoman Koss more than they can imagine, coming in, just being newly elected, because we've been crossing paths. We've been working hard. We listened to the residents. We talked to folks. We've all taken some different issues and projects that we're moving forward with and trying to move forward with. I think it's great. I've really enjoyed all the support I've gotten from them with reference to a lot of the activities that are going on in the city. I'm so grateful, very grateful to the two of you. Not trying to disregard anyone else on the council, but it's what I've seen from them being newly elected, and the support that I've gotten from them, and I really do appreciate it. But anyway, I've been out visiting our parks on a weekly basis. Some of the events that are happening in our parks. I was very impressed with the event that took place this Easter. One of the things that really impressed me when I got there was the level of security we had at Provost Park. And I believe they have probably about anywhere from 18 to 20 armed security guards there. No alcohol involved in the park. Things were clean. It was nice. It was a good event. They had, I think, fire rescue was there as well. I saw the vehicle over there, and it was a great event. Absolute great event. Some of what we really need at this park to kind of turn things around from what we've been seeing there. And then, of course, our conversations with the Parks and Recs. There's a lot of work that's got to be done to our parks. And my biggest concern is that we have the same level of service throughout our city. I don't care what you have or what you don't have. It doesn't matter to me. But everyone deserves the same level of service, the same level of education, the same, when it comes to their streets and sidewalks, I want to see those sidewalks. I want to see those streets fixed because no kid should have to, and no family should have to see some of the stuff I see on Pineda. It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing when I ride down on Pineda and see what some of what I consider one of the poorest areas in the city of Cocoa, that these kids, not only they're struggling, at homes, issues at school, and then you look at their sidewalks, their streets, the stuff they have to walk on and travel on. It's embarrassing. It's really embarrassing to me, but if it's the last thing I do, we're going to turn it around and we're going to pull it together and we're going to get it together. And my goal is to bring our community together and stop this divide that we see in our community. Because there's such a big divide in our community, and it's based on our positions in the community, where we live, and that's foolishness to me. We should all be working together for the betterment of our community, and that's my goal. And I had some other stuff I was going to talk about, but I'm not going to talk about that. I just want to say that. And then also we got an award for the Mayor's Challenge. I think we like 4th or 5th place, so that should go up. And
Did you lose any weight?
about 2 pounds. And then we have our. But and then today I was at the and I want to thank Patrick Air Force Base, the 45th Space Wing commander. And I tell you, I was there for their Black History Week event and month event, and I'll tell you, I spent 8 years in the Air Force, and I was enlisted. But to be sitting at a table with that much brass, I mean, with the general himself and his whole staff of full-bird colonels, it was, and they treated me like I was royalty. I was shocked. And actually, they introduced myself as the mayor of Cocoa before they introduced the general.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, But I was really impressed, and it was a nice event. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
That's because we provide their water.
Yeah. And today I was at the Space Center there with the Center Director, and we had our Secretary of Transportation there, Ms. Elaine L. Cho. She spoke today. And she was just talking about some projects that's happening here, that's going to be happening here in our area, in Brevard County. And one of those deals is there's $92 million that's going to be allocated for the 9 most busiest seaports, and we have 3 of those here in Florida. So you better believe a lot of that money is going to be coming here, the Port Canaveral over in Tampa and down south. So and then also just an update on the Space Center, some of the projects which a lot of us know about, and we know this happening. And other than that, but she talked about some grants and stuff, but I'll be getting with the city manager on that stuff. But it was a great event, thoroughly enjoyed it. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and Councilman Bover, would you like to? Okay. Councilwoman Koch.
Okay. Well, there's a lot going on with the lagoon, and the county commissioners, they had a workshop last week. I was really glad to see Ed and Abby there participating in that, and I'm hoping we get, at the last meeting, for the workshop for the commissioners, they talked a lot about wastewater, and we didn't really have anybody from our, wastewater department there. And I'm just hoping that we'll kind of keep our, keep up with the pulse of that, because there appear to be some monies that could be breaking loose at the state level, as well as support from our commissioners. And I would want to make sure that we take full advantage of any opportunities there. And the only other thing I'll say is that this Saturday is the Healthy Children's Day at the YMCA in District 4 from 10 to 1.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman, go on, sir.
First, I'd like to thank everyone for being here tonight and also listening at home. There's a few things I had questions about, it's for Mr. Takanich, dealing with the, I've got probably over 40, 50 emails regarding the bi-week pay for employees. There's a lot of concerned individuals, maybe some misinformation. But I would like to address it. I don't know if the letter has went out to those employees yet, but I would definitely like to address that situation because it's 40 now, but probably when I get home, it'll probably be another 35. So is there any way we can address that tonight?
There,
Yeah, so far.
first and foremost, the weekly, the payroll policy, it's in the handbook, so it would have to come back to council for any change. And there, even during the contract conversations, it was discussed, but there is no, we're still in the process of presenting, evaluating, the pros, cons, putting together a business case to bring back, to bring to council, and an implementation timeline has not even been set. It just says, someone jumped the gun thinking that it was out, that it was, because we made the comment was made in a meeting that if we were to do, when we would do it, one, obviously a significantly amount of advance notice, but a 5-week pay month to make it less burdensome. And somehow that got out, and it was like it was happening in May, and it's not the case.
Yeah.
I mean, if we were to look at it, and Tammy's not here, but we've talked, that it's not even maybe the October, but maybe even like, bringing it back for discussion later, but for, giving we're talking like a, 6-month, 9-month, time to adjust, before it's awareness. Maybe the first 5-week, if it was going to happen, the first 5-week, other than January, obviously, because that is a 5-week. So you'd be looking at March, I think. It would be March or April is the first 5-week month in the calendar year, next calendar year. So it just got out. And it's not that it was it should have been a surprise, because again, it was discussed at, I think, pretty much at all of the collective bargaining sessions, but I think obviously some of the general employees, they're not. And I think that's what kind of got it out there. Then it went out from there and just spread.
Yeah, it did.
And
yeah, I guess my whole purpose is just bringing it up so that because I got those emails, I want to make sure that they heard it from you. Like
there's a draft email sitting there, but as you know, I went home not feeling well, and I didn't make it back.
All right. So I want to just get it on record that's not the case as of May, like they.
That's correct. That's not the case.
Okay. Thank you. And I don't think there's any issue of a discussion moving forward. It's just when the email goes out like that, it's going to spread. And man, I'm talking about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting emails. So people feel strongly about their paychecks. People, there's one thing you don't play with: their food and their money. And I seen that the last week or so. So I appreciate that. I visited Hannibal Square Heritage Center, African American History Museum, and met with Barbara Chandler. She is the manager that facility, and she is willing to help us, provide us guidance with Leon and Jewel Collins African American History Museum. I spoke with our new employee, Daryl Niles, about it as well, and maybe in the future, within the next month or so, we'll provide a trip for us to go over and visit the facility, because we have a museum in our city, and I'm not, if I want to name it, if it's going to be an African American History Museum, we need to be just that. Right now, we don't have a plan for it, as far as I know, and it needs to be a plan put in place instead of a empty building. So they're willing to provide that. The building is outstanding. The exhibits that they have is unbelievable. And I think it'll help us guide us in the right direction, since we now are on the historical list as well, with help from our staff. The Jolie Smith Center, the existing building, was a conversation I've had from several people the last 2 or 3 weeks asking me questions about it. I know we don't have a plan per se about what we're going to do with that building, but people in the community definitely do not want that building to be a retention pond, and I want to ensure them that it won't be. So it's a conversation that people have been having, and so I just want to just bring that up. What is the possible plan?
We don't know until after the building's vacated, and then we can go in and do an analysis of the building in terms of asbestos, lead-based paint. We know there's plumbing issues, there's electrical issues, and we committed from day one, or well, once we made the decision at Jolie Smith, that we would do the analysis after the fact before we, would say that it was going to be demolished. I know the county Parks and Rec is not desirous of maintaining 2 buildings. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I know it was several conversation about possibly. I think I said something to Matt about it too in the past, about the possible 501c3s or nonprofits come in and take over the facility, and that's the same thing that they did in Titusville as well, which was pretty much sell it to a nonprofit. I think they did it to the county for $1 or whatever it was, but that 501c3 or nonprofit, church or whoever it may be, takes over the facility, and the city and county it's your baby now. So that's maybe possibly a plan moving forward with that as well. So just throw that.
But we would still want to do our due diligence, because we would not want to hand over something that has environmental, and/or health conditions, and it would be irresponsible. So we would still do that. So but that's after the Jolie Smith Center is completed. We'll do that analysis.
Okay. Last thing is we got a lot of emails from, I think everyone has, from Miss Pickle regarding the Airbnb situation in her neighborhood. Where are we now with as far as legislation dealing with the state and what they came up with?
As you know, the last 2 weeks, 2 weeks, but I mean, I think it has passed both chambers, it's my understanding. I'll verify it, tomorrow, but it just tracking so many bills, and my memory's kind of foggy. But I'd like to know what meetings, by the way, our fellow resident attended, because we were at meetings that weren't so kind up there, especially when people were talking, local government was talking there. But, and that was one of the issues. So I know it's passed. We do have I'm just trying to recall, and I apologize, I can't pull it up right now, whether or not they were identical. Remember, if you recall, there were some identical, there were similar, and then there were some that, just were different. And so, I mean, obviously, they're in conference committees, at the budget, but they're still pushing through other stuff. They've resurrected some things. There was one piece of legislation that got resurrected, very quickly. But I think it has... I think it's passed the House. I don't know if it's passed the Senate in terms of the full Senate. But I'll follow up on that. And then also to see what changes may have had occurred since some of the committee meetings. In the House, I don't think there's been any changes. I think they've largely ignored any concern for the residents and the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
That's the best I can put it.
Yeah, I think she was just tired of people jumping off the roof, jumping in the pool on the weekends. That's what.
And I'll follow up with, I'll get with Nancy about, I don't know, with regard to the Airbnb, whether or not who may have advised, or what she was advised in terms of what she could do in terms of her selling her property.
All right, thank you.
And I'll add to that a little bit. I know that, I guess she had a contract on her home.
That's what I was
To a realtor.
yeah.
And I guess they were told by someone from the city that they couldn't do Airbnbs in the city of Cocoa.
Yeah.
And I guess what happened was that contract went by the wayside, so she was wanting to know what was happening with the other piece of property that was doing the same thing. And if so, where are we as a city? I mean, what do we have in place?
But there's over almost 400 Airbnbs in the city.
That's right.
Well, in the postal area.
In the postal, yeah. So, I mean, it just,
In that area.
well, no, there's one right across the street from City Hall. I mean, there's not a bad, they're not bad, just it's proper, it's like proper tree, proper location, you know?
Yeah.
And that's not the right location in the middle of a neighborhood, you know, to have a commercial use.
And just one last thing before I call for a motion to adjourn this meeting. I had talked to our code enforcement manager, Mr. Bunt, before in the past, and I know that I requested a list of all the properties that had liens on them, that had started and ended, as well as the ones that were still running. And I wanted to know the amounts of the liens and the start dates and end dates. I didn't get that. I just got a list with the addresses and so forth and so on. But my goal is that we have a lot of properties out there where the liens have stopped, and we need to give these property owners some relief. Some of them are homeowners, a lot of them are homeowners, to where they need to be able to get these liens removed from their homes if there's no current issues, so they can either refinance their homes or get some additional monies to improve their homes. And we have a ton of them, and I was looking at them, and most of them are based on weeds and high grass, and basically just cutting grass. And but we need to go back and look at these properties and come up with the lien forgiveness, and just have these folks responsible for paying just what the city's out of, so these people can get going and improve their properties. Because I'm just like some of those folks out there. I'm not gonna throw good money after bad. If I got $100,000 or $50,000 worth of liens on my property, I'm not gonna invest money into that property, improving it. And that's what we're seeing in our city.
The chief and I discussed, and I think you're working with the city attorney's office on an amnesty program that would allow people that are in, so I mean, we are working on something of that nature.
And I know, I've discussed that with Mr. Bunt, and we've discussed that. And nothing's happened yet, but I'm just seeing too many outsiders buying properties in the city, buying these properties with liens on them, and being able to go before the code boards and get the liens dropped for a minimum amount that's left on there that the city's out of, when we could do the same thing for homeowners. We don't know what their circumstances were back then. We don't know what went on in their life back then. And I just think it's wrong that we do what we do. I mean, I'm a big proponent of code enforcement and so forth and so on. But then at the same time, we don't know what happened and what led them to have these issues and these liens on their properties. And we just need to look back, because I'd rather have these homeowners in these homes versus some of the renters that these folks that are purchasing a home are putting in these homes, because they don't care who they put next door to you. And it's just unfortunate. That's what we're seeing in our community, and that needs to change. But I just hope that we can move forward with this a little faster than we are, because that needs to happen. So with that being said, if I can have a motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn.
we got a motion to adjourn, a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.